Productofthe90s. Productofthe90s.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Unsolved Mysteries of the Reservation.
Oh,
What's going on, y'all?
We're back. Thank you for joining us
Again.
motto.
Hit that subscribe button if you have not yet. They talk about a bell you hit whenever.
So yeah, it's like a notification bell. So every time that we post,
they get a notification.
An angel gets its wings.
And then
yeah,
I have not mentioned this. I'm sorry, but thank you to everybody that subscribed to our YouTube channel. We hit 1,000 subscribers.
Whoa.
Which is crazy.
Has this been going the whole time?
I started, but
dang, okay. Anyways,
But thank you, everybody, for subscribing, hitting the like button, commenting. Schedules are really crazy, so we try to get back to you whenever we can on our personal accounts, I guess. But thank you so much for subscribing and just sharing the videos, liking them. There's always some cool comments in there. They're always like, I fall asleep to you guys, or, you know, like I'm at work and I enjoy listening to you guys, just passing the time by. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And yeah, I don't have anything planned for 1K, but I might have something planned for 2K. I don't know.
Yeah, get to 2K. We'll talk.
But yeah, I just wanted to mention that because I forgot about it. Y'all brought that up, and I was like, dang, are we really that many subscribers? It's just hard to believe because it's like, whoa, I've never had like anybody like that many subscribers or something. So that's pretty cool.
If you guys get up to 2K, we'll put your name on Russell's back.
Yeah.
With Tyler's toenails. God.
Infected.
God.
I thought Chris might give you a little twerking in the camera.
Golly.
Hey, now that's 3,000 right there, boy.
He's going to shake what the creator gave him.
Need that 3G. Then I'll
Watch it
get up
spike.
there.
It's going to spike like COVID.
God.
Oh, we already hit it. 3K.
All right, guys. No,
You better bring the moneymaker.
All right, Russell, move this table.
Our phone's blowing up.
Smoking.
God.
Give me some of that heat. Yeah.
Oh my god. Hey, someone please stop Tyler Randall. Woo! Someone stop
Please
him.
sponsor us. Mountain Dew Zero.
Yeah. Come on now.
You know, we got a lot of on our Halloween episodes. We got so many responses on the hog meat comment.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
We ain't even going to talk about
funny.
that, man.
Hog meat.
Why did I say that?
I don't know. That was weird.
I meant hog fry, and then it just... My words got twisted.
That sounded better, though, after me.
Yeah, it did.
Meat, boy. I was thinking of sandwiches.
Well, I thought you were thinking of Hogwarts from Harry Potter.
I don't even know what I
Because
was
I
thinking, man.
thought you were saying I look like that guy that passed away. What's his name?
Hagrid?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. R.I.P. But yeah, I thought you said Hagrid or something, and then you said from hog meat. I was like, what?
Telling you.
Now it's hog fry though.
Hog fry. That's what I was trying to say. My words got twisted.
Hog fry.
Meat hog.
Man.
Man, I went back and watched the video, and I posted a clip on my Facebook. Man, the look on everyone's faces when you said that, we were like, "What hog meat?" But yeah, go check out that Halloween episode. We were all dressed up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Chris is going to give me a muzzle for Christmas.
Oh man. Yeah. Good episode. Go check that out if you haven't yet. Go check out every episode we have came out with. We got some listener stories.
Yeah.
and some other things happening on this episode. It's an episode. I'm not going to say the name of it yet, but it's an episode that everybody wanted to hear. Everyone's been talking about this episode, bringing it up on our lives and everywhere since we started, and we're going to give it to you. But not yet.
And the kids at my school. I'll tell you all about that in a minute. I got in trouble, as I always do. My mouth got me in trouble again.
Hey, please, at the end of the year, can we just do a Tyler Hot Reel? Like we just post on the YouTube of just everything he said. Like just every crazy thing he said on this podcast.
Dang, you might get him fired.
Well, can't teach forever, I guess.
I'm retiring.
Yeah, retirement
early.
Looks very near and dear to your heart right now.
Oh.
So I know
Who has them?
Yeah, who has the list? I mean, I have a few, but mine are related to the topic.
All right.
I don't
You want me to go first? I'll go first.
Rock, paper, scissors. Who goes first?
I got it. I'm going to go ahead and I'll lead this mob.
Thank you.
I got a couple of messages from Derek Morris again. He is a listener of the show and quickly becoming, dare I say, a friend. He's definitely, contacted me a few times, and we've had some conversations. He's up in Tennessee, and he sent me a couple of videos. One is a pretty horrific Bigfoot scream. So I'm going to go ahead and play this for you. He says that this came from Western North Carolina, which is just right over the mountain from where he lives. So I'll play this.
Wow.
Yeah, there you go.
Man, that scream, man, that's imagine because like my parents have heard that kind of scream before, but just imagine if you're just you're not expecting something to hit you like that. That's crazy.
Yeah. Have you ever heard a Bigfoot scream like that? You've been out, out in the
I've heard similar calls like that. They also make a different type of a yell. I mean, that one's more of a what do you call it? Holler.
Like a howl, I guess.
Yeah.
Is that like an alert howl, you think, or is that a warning howl, or do we know?
Me personally, I don't know. I don't know what they're saying, but I do know there's differences. I've been out, in the field, and I've heard, different noises like that. Now, of course, you ask the locals, and some of them will tell you that's the Bigfoot. Some of them will say, oh, it might be a big cat, or it might be a bear or a wolf, or they'll have all kinds of explanations for it. But to me, that and those wood knocks, they're actually peculiar. The thing that I always think is amazing when you hear people talk about this is they don't talk about the feeling that you get. And to me, that makes the big difference between that and if it was a big cat or a bear or something, because you might hear that bear in the distance and you won't have no feeling, but you'll know, to watch out, but when you hear something actually like that and it's real, it's not fake, you'll feel it all the way down to your bones. And to me, I think that's his when you say halizwa, his medicine, and so to me, when he makes those calls like that, I do know it's probably for a reason, but what that reason is, I don't know.
Yeah. No, that's that type of scream, man, it's pretty wicked. I appreciate that, Derek.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, Motto.
I have, I don't know if you guys want to, if I can get this to work right, but I got some EVPs from Stacy Price. She's a Oklahoma ghost hunter here in the state of Oklahoma. She actually came to our library event, and what was that? Where was that library at?
Zorro.
Zorro.
Regional.
Tulsa.
That was Tulsa.
Tulsa.
Yeah. We was at Tulsa, and she showed up, and she had some stories, stuff, and again, she's a local ghost hunter, and she goes all over the place, and she has her own page and stuff. But she sent me some EVPs, so I'm gonna play a couple of them if I can get it to work right. Let's see if I can get this to play right.
Who's standing on the stairs?
And that was supposed to say Edward. I'll play it one more time, see if you guys can hear it.
Who's standing on the stairs?
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Man.
And then let's see. If you, this one I'm going to play, see if you can pick out what it's saying.
Did anyone go into the light?
Did you guys hear it?
Play it again.
Did anyone go into the light?
It's supposed to be saying yes.
Mm.
Let me play one more. And this one should be a little bit longer.
If you go towards the white light, you can find happiness there. Did anyone go into the light?
Let's see if this one. That one's supposed to say Father.
Mm.
Yeah, I do hear
okay.
that. Yeah.
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 And
Man.
she, my understanding, she specializes in these EVPs. So, again, if you guys are interested, I think she does tours and different stuff. And her name is Stacy Price. You can find her on Facebook. Mado for that.
Mado.
Appreciate that.
That sounded a little bit like when Russell orders food at the drive-thru.
Big name.
Yes. Father.
Dang.
No, I'm just kidding. Did she bring any of her
I'm just
equipment to
That's cool.
the event?
Yeah. She was wanting to come to Pawnee, but she said something had come up. She couldn't make it, but at that event, she had some stuff. She thought we might go out and do something, but that was with the public library, so we were kind of limited on what we could do there. And so maybe in a future event, maybe she might come out again and lend us her expertise on EVPs.
Did she have that EVP thing?
Yeah, she's got all that equipment. She's got that REM pod. She's got several different those ghost box.
Oh,
The actual equipment, not a phone app.
Not a phone.
Yeah,
That's cool.
But I know a lot of people debate, over those phone apps and those ghost box, stuff like that. But the thing about it is, no matter what you use, if you believe and you can harness energy for that spirit to communicate, they'll use those tools. I hear people really debating, well, I don't know about those phone apps, or I don't know about that ghost box or that REM pod. A lot of people can set those off real easy. Even old school ghost hunting tools where they take a flashlight and they what do you call it, kind of make it loose to where if that ghost touches it, it'll turn the light on.
Oh, wow.
And then you got crystals, and you got those
Prongs?
What are those like
Those
copper.
Yeah.
Yeah, where they cross.
yeah, those copper wire things. I can't remember what they call them, but even those, you've got to be able to harness to communicate. So, you can say that about any of that equipment, whether,
Yeah, for sure.
it's real or not real or fake or whatever. if a ghost wants to communicate with you, he will communicate with you. He'll use what you have, and sometimes they don't even need anything to communicate with you. They might move something for you, or they might make a noise, or they might knock, or if you're real open, they'll actually talk to you, not in a voice, but through your mind. And people forget that. Again, I've been doing this for quite some time. I've seen all kinds of equipment, seen all kinds of people do equipment. And, the thing I like to do, I like to get multiple equipment. I like the latest, like the phone apps. I like the actual ghost box. And I like to also use like crystals or some of those copper wiring things, And if they all kind of, come up with that something's there, then you can't really argue. Because you got different styles of, equipment, whether it's new, old, or, just, whatever, So that to me is pretty amazing that she has all these EVPs. And I've heard some pretty good EVPs in my time, but for me, I'd rather use this than any kind of equipment, because then I can communicate back with them. That's just me, though. Everybody else is different. So
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing about spirits. Like, I always, I think we've mentioned this before on a podcast, was like that ringing in your ears that you get, where it's like it's like a sharp sound. There's times in my middle of the day I get that, and I'm like, dang, what is that? Kind of throws you off a little bit. But I have 2 stories from a person that I have a YouTube comment that was left to us, which kind of pertains to what we're going to talk about today. So the first story I have here, she would like to remain anonymous, but she's a really big fan of the show, the TikTok lives, the podcast, and she has 2 stories. I told you I was gonna get to them. She's like, "Oh, you ain't tell my stories. It's been 2 months." Like, so basically, this is in the spring of 1998, and she was at her uncle's house with her cousin, and her cousin set out traps out behind this house. And one day they were out there and they kind of looking through the traps, and they find this little kind of humanoid furry hand in the trap, with just a hand. And they thought it was real weird. Like, what is that? That's odd. It looked human, but it didn't look human, but it was furry. It was like hairy on it. And I believe it was her cousin. Let's see. I believe had some traps, and then a hairy hand was found in it. A little small, tiny hand with hair. And he ends up taking it with him for the rest of the day, puts it in his pocket, and is walking around with this thing.
That little hand?
That little hand.
Dang.
And all of a sudden, he gets real sick. Like, bad sick. And she says it almost killed him. And her uncle told him to basically take some tobacco, wrap it in that hand, and take it to where you found it. And he got better. And then they went back the next day, and it was gone.
Oh, dang.
So whatever that was, you're hearing that story. What do you? I'm thinking maybe baby Bigfoot. I don't. LP maybe. I don't.
How big?
They said it was like the toddler size of a toddler's hand. It was hairy.
Dang. It was like a monkey paw. Like I thought you were gonna make a wish on it, and like you get 4 wishes on the monkey paw or something.
Yeah, I know. I was like, dang, that's kind of crazy. Especially. Where, I think it was out kind of maybe Red Rock area, I believe.
Yeah.
So out there. So the second story she told me, and I'm not,
That's crazy.
I know, right? The toddler. Dang, I know. Like, I'm trying to envision like my daughter's hand, being hairy.
Yeah, little bitty hand.
Yeah. But
take it? That's crazy.
Yeah, to take it and carry it around all day.
Put it in your pocket.
Just be like.
That's the last thing I'd think about. Like, you know what? I'm gonna put that in my pocket.
Yeah, that's crazy. But
I'd be chewing on it.
Then he'd be Put it in the oven, make some jerky out of it.
And
No.
boil water.
Chris
Dang, y'all
make
know
a
those-
back scratcher
Yeah,
out of
soup.
it.
Y'all know those chicken claws? Y'all seen those chicken claws at
Yeah.
Walmart? That's what it's
Yeah.
like. Get that bone broth.
Pickled ham.
Dang.
Oh, just kidding.
So she tells the second story, and this is a story that was told to us on TikTok Live, but she never got the chance to fully tell it. She just said, "Hey, I have a gargoyle story."
Okay.
So basically, this happened in Red Rock, and she pulled up to these train tracks in Red Rock, and she kind of looks. It's kind of dark outside, and she's just making sure there's no train coming, and she looks down about 2 car lengths away. She sees this silhouette of this figure kind of hunched over. And she's like, "What is that? I don't know what that is." All of a sudden, she's seeing the wings. And she said it was basically kind of hunched over when you could see the wings kind of come out a little bit. And she says, yeah, that's why she never drives in Red Rock anymore. But they said that, in that area, they said that they have seen that gargoyle flying around, in that area. Now, I don't know how recent the story is. She didn't give me a time, but...
Mm-hmm.
But she says that they still see it sometimes flying around.
Whoa.
That gargoyle.
That's crazy.
I remember that story, but it was hard to put together because in our lives it's so crazy and wild in there. Like you read like what she say, like she looked outside her car and then it's like just that, and then
Yeah.
it cuts off because TikTok. You could only use so many words in your comment or whatever, and then it's like, well, what's that from? And then I had to piece it together. I was like, oh, this is that story.
Yeah.
Like, okay, but now it's cool to finally
Kind of get the full...
get
the
the
whole
full
story.
yeah. So
No, just I haven't really heard a lot of gargoyle stories. Now, I know that they're out there.
Yeah.
But to me, I always envision... Remember that Gargoyles animated show back in the
Yeah.
90s?
Yeah.
That's what
Great show.
that's what I imagined. But
Yeah.
she said this thing kind of looked like... those statues on, like in, was it France? Where they're kind of bent over and they got the long teeth?
Yeah.
That's essentially what she kind of thinks she saw. It was real small, hunched over, and the wings were kind of retracted back. So,
Yeah.
that's a crazy story to know it's, from, me to that camera, away, maybe a little further than that, but that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Chris posted that video of a gargoyle on a church. I think it was on your Instagram. Yeah. So I've seen videos of it. It's wild
Yeah.
to see that. It's creepy.
So I got one last story, and this pertains to kind of what we're going to talk about today. I guess it's a little bit of a segue into that. So there's a guy on our YouTube page that he consistently is always commenting. And not saying we don't appreciate that. We just haven't got to, we have so many things that people will send us on YouTube. Like people just give us their story in the comments, and it's like TikTok. It's hard to read through comments. But this comes from Paul Bird Creek from YouTube comments. But he says one time, his dad mentioned that LP were at the grounds, at the ceremony grounds. And he was a kid when he heard this, but there was some men sleeping, outside and kind of in a I guess basically kind of in a group, I guess a camp group. And all of a sudden they looked over, one of the relatives was being dragged off, and they couldn't see who was dragging it. And he said that the relative was like a heavy dude, 500-pound dude, like not a small guy, but he was being basically, carried off into the woods. And his dad said that he said that's what those LP little people. But he said if you ever walk in the woods and stuff, you just can't cross them. You gotta respect them. But that comes from Paul Bird Creek. I know it's a short story, but they said that they saw their relative basically just getting kind of like how ants carry. That's what it looked like. Like he was just like asleep still.
Like Gulliver or whatever.
Yeah, he's still-
Darby O'Gill.
I know, just slumped out, man, just getting carried off.
That's crazy.
Reminds me of the snake. No.
I've never heard of stories about like them having like strength like that.
Well, he said it was a part of it, and he did mention that the medicine guy that I guess he's with, and like I said, I don't know what tribe or nation he's with, but he said that he felt them when after they got done with the ceremony. He could feel them when they were around, And and I guess maybe he didn't give backstory on if that guy did something to him or or anything like that. But he just said basically he felt him and they could see him kind of get carted off or whatever. But it's crazy.
I heard one about. Oh, did you find that story, Chris?
Yeah, but I'll play it later.
Okay. I heard one about. I don't know where I heard this from. I don't know if it was a video or audio or something, or maybe YouTube or TikTok. I don't know. Somebody was telling a story about how they would carry cows, and this guy and his dad were like, they're walking around or hiking or something. And they're walking along this farm or something, and all of a sudden, like, they were looking at this farm, and then one of the cows were upside down.
Dang.
And it was, like, just being, like, carried somewhere. And then I think the kid was like, what's that, And his dad was just like, just don't look at it or something, you know? Because he knew what it was, but he just, like, was... His kid was I think the kid was telling the story, and he was saying like he didn't know like exactly like what was going on. He just remember seeing this. There's like nothing underneath the cow. He couldn't see anything, and it was just like this cow upside down, just being like carried, just full grown cow, and that was that. And then his dad just said, "Come on, let's go." And I think later on he told him that's why he was telling the story. So I don't know where that was. I think that was on this maybe Twitter Spaces. I don't know. I got invited to one of those in June, so I don't know. I have to think.
Yeah,
that's you saying that made me remember that story.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's one thing. If you guys aren't aware, our topic today is little people or LP, and that's one thing that I was always taught growing up. I know we mentioned dust devils before in a previous episode, but growing up for me, as being, I've experienced them. I've shared a story, growing up where, you get turned around or, they kind of messing with you or trying to lead you off somewhere. And, that's one thing growing up is I think, there's good and there's bad. And I've heard, I've also heard too from family members that little people, they can travel interdimensionally. I've heard that too. I know some Creek family that have mentioned that. But that's one thing that, for me, I look at them in kind of a spooky context, like a trickster context. But I know there are good out there. Not saying there isn't, but that's how I kind of look at them,
I know the Muskogee, we have some strong belief in little people. And I know from what I've been told, like what you're talking about, the little ones, they are the ones with the strong medicine, and they're like the evil ones, and then the ones that are, taller, I guess would be the right word. They're more like pranksters, and but I guess it all kind of depends on the situation, because I know that there are some other stories where, the pranks or the jokes that they're playing cause real fear and real, terror in the people that they're tricking.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for this topic. This is one that, I think I probably have the most stories for. Yeah. Just like growing up and hearing them. And so, I'm excited for this one.
I commend you guys on, taking on this topic, because most of you guys won't make it home tonight. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just teasing. But no, both of you guys are right. There are different forms of these what you call LPs or little people. And there's stories all through Indian country that address these type of beings. And a lot of these different different types of LPs have different names. And just like Tyler was mentioning, some do certain things, and some, are mischievous, some are evil, some are invisible, and, for Native people, and again, I'm going to address Muskogee people, first, because that's who I am, and with us, we have good stories about them, about them coming, giving us our dance, our medicines, a lot of the medicines you see at our grounds, come from them, those songs that, they use. And I'm talking about the old ancient ones, not the ones that's converted in today's Muskogee. I'm talking about the ones that are in the original languages. Those incantations, they came from those people. And so with that being said, again, like Mr. Randall was saying, they got a lot of power, to address, Yahola's, question, or, the thing that he brought up, I was always told that, some of these, beings, they are very powerful, but, how you say, their world is reversed. They used to say, those old timers, when they would tell stories, like, they might be taking you somewhere to go hunt herbs or to teach you something. They might get to this big body of water, big river, and they'll grab you by the hand and they'll take you across the water. It's like one leap and they're already on the other side. But then they'll come to like a little crack in the ground where there's a little water streaming, and they'll ask you, can you help me get across? I can't do it, and you pick them up and you carry them across, you just step over. Their world is like that. They have, how you say, things that they can do and things they can't do. And, just like we said before, for the Muskogee people, we have different forms of these entities. One that they describe, and this is probably one of your most fierce ones. They say he has like a pig face. And he's actually, they say a foot, maybe a little bit taller than a foot tall. But his power, he can do a lot of things. Again, a lot of those people that's up to no good kind of call upon these to do certain kind of witching, or taking care of someone in a bad way, and you have these other ones that are more like trolls, or described like trolls, little short men, real. I think I heard Tyler describe one of them. They're real stomintkoji. You mean they look raggedy, rugged. Their hair is long and unkept, and their clothes are tattered. This one, they say, he can be super evil, and he's hard to control. And this one loves to run off with children. They say, if your child ends up missing, it's probably one of these things. So there was a way that they would go hunt for them, to get those children back. And sometimes they had the power and sometimes they didn't. And then you have some that are what you would consider more like a fairy. They got wings and they're small. And these are more like, how you say, woodland spirits. They take care of the woods and the herbs. I know Tyler mentioned this before, that, when you go hunt herbs, sometimes there's a ritual before you can do that. And if you don't do those things, those kind of things come and hide those things from you. Or you might need this special herb, but it's surrounded by nothing but snakes. That's those things. They're telling you, you ain't right. Don't touch this or you're going to regret it. And, of course they come in different ways too. And then you got these ones that fly, up in the air. And these ones, some refer to them as like half crow, half man, or half human. They have the wings and the head, but they'll have a little body like a human. And those are wicked things, They don't also come as crows, but they come as blackbirds as well. And they can shapeshift into a full bird, or they can come to you half. And those things, they have stories in our old country down in Florida, Georgia, and Alabama that would come and try to take over villages and bring all kinds of sicknesses. And again, when they had these kind of things, they would call upon the good ones, give them offerings and things to kind of ward those things off. And there's a song that goes along with that, to call them. And, they say, if those things are around, people get really sick and they die, and their children will be born deformed. That's how wicked these things are. And they said, that used to be prominent way back. That's why they had stories like that. Then you had these other ones that were like, what do you call it? They were also half animal and half human, but they were little. They were small. One, again, these are pretty much all evil entities. This one that I'm getting ready to talk about, he looks like he was part of a bear, like a half bear, half human. And this one was fierce. He came and, he took women and children, but he really preferred, women that were pregnant. And that's the one that he would take off because he liked the taste of that baby. So that's what he would do. Then they have one that's they describe it, it's like, it shows up like an otter, and sometimes it comes as a half otter, half man. But again, you have to understand these are little beings, and when you see these, they'll see them in water. They swim, and they can also be known to chase you up trees. And again, these things kind of were after, people not so good. So I don't know how evil you would consider that, but anyway, it craved people that was, bullies or mean people. And you would always know that these things were around, because these things, they say, would eat their heart, but in reality, they didn't eat their heart. They just kind of, what you would call today a massive heart attack. And my understanding was, the Creator created this thing to come and collect. Somebody acting up too much, that's what this thing did. You got too much out of hand, that thing would come get you. So again, there are different forms of LPs. Even that. This is what I'm just discussing from Muskogee Creeks. Like I said, we've got a whole bunch of these type of entities. This is just top of the hat. This isn't all of them, but this is just the ones that I'm going to address today. But again, you go up north, they've got some that are friendly. The Dakotas, they consider them as friends. They say don't be afraid of them. And the way they describe theirs they're like 2 feet tall, you know. And so anyway, you know, that's how they describe theirs, you know. And again, majority of these ones that, you know, you would consider, how you say, non-threatening. I won't say they're all non-threatening, but, you know, if you make them mad, they'll take care of you. But, you know, in a majority of them, they come in peace. But they always say that, you know, they dress like the Indians that they were around. You know, so if they're in Pawnee, they'll look like Pawnees, old school Pawnees, not these.
Dang, don't say it. I was about,
Not me.
I was about to say, don't say Russell.
So don't be dressing up like Russell. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm talking about old school. I'm talking about, you know, even before the removals.
Yeah.
You know, those style of Indians, they all had their different look. You know, today, even how we look at Indians, it's all made up by the white man. You know, the way we think of each other dresses. You know, but that's more white man way of thinking. That's how bad we are as natives. We even believe in what the white man says how we looked, you know. But you know, those older Indians, they all had their distinguished look about them, and they had things that said who they were on their clothes, whether it's the colors or the designs, you know, or the beadwork, you know. And that's how these things, you know, they had that old way about them, and they would dress like the original people in that area. And so, you know, again, you know, to me, you know, you hear stories like that all through Indian country, in Canada, Alaska, you know, even New Mexico, you know, Mexico area, you know, they have little people. But then you think about across the waters, you know, with Europeans and stuff like that. They had their own. And if you look at their little people stories, you know, whether it's the leprechaun or the, what they call it, gnomes.
Gnomes
Gnomes,
from
yeah.
Germany.
Yeah.
Well,
and
golems too, I think.
golems and what else is there?
Duendes.
Yes.
That's Mexico. Or that's
Mexico.
Mexico.
Yeah. And
Don't they? Let me ask you this, Chris. Would Gugway, was that fit in that? I know that is that a different type of being? I've heard that name before, especially when you talk about the hairy ones.
yeah, I would consider that, you know, as one, you know, because again, you know, you're talking about all man-like little entities,
Yeah.
and they all had different supernatural abilities. You know, even the Vikings, you know, they had, you know, hairy little people too. And those were wicked, evil things. You know, Africans, they have, amongst all their many tribes, they all have a little person story.
Yeah.
You know, if you go far, far back, you know, and even in those, how you say, Arabic countries, you know, they've got things too. And
Yeah.
a lot of theirs is pretty wicked, you know. And then you go around, you know, was it Italy? You know, they have stories of those things too. So all across the world, you know, you have them telling not only one style of story, but there's different forms of them. And that's what I think is pretty awesome, because, you know, like I said, you know, Ireland's known for their leprechauns, but there's other ones that they used to believe in too. And so their little people was just as diverse as our little people here. So again, you know, they had different names, different abilities. Some you called upon, some of them you wanted to ward off from. Some took your children, some took your wife, sometimes even some took the breadwinners, which is the male, during those times. You know, and to me, you know, it just depends on where you're from and what kind of story they have, but, you know, they're all similar basically. And to me, that's what, you know, I think Mr. Randall says that kind of, what do you say, kind of justifies it, or
Yeah.
makes it real.
Yeah.
I forgot what big word you used, but I know you one of those educated men.
You know, no, I've got a story, a really interesting story, because I've only heard this one other time, and it makes complete sense when you were talking about like they live in sort of like this reverse world, because that's kind of what this story is. There was an old Hilasea that he told this story about, you know, a generational Hilasea had just gotten married. So this didn't happen to him. It happened to, you know, Hilasea or medicine maker before him. And he said that he had gotten married, and the night that they had gotten married, it had rained, and he woke up the next morning, and, you know, it was still just about daybreak, and he was going to go for a walk. And he said, you know, he just was feeling good, you know, just got married, life was perfect, you know, and he's just going to go get a cup of coffee, and he's, you know, going for a walk. And he said he was walking, and he heard little voices in the woods, and those voices kind of called to him, and he went to find those voices. And he said he came across this little clearing, and he said there was two little people that spoke Muskogee, and they were dressed, like you said, like the old ones. And when they saw him, they said, you know, "Hey, can you help us? You know, we've been dancing all night, and the rain came and it flooded our dance grounds, and we're stuck. We can't get across." And so he was looking around for a way to help them, and he said he found like an old sapling tree, and that had been kind of broke over, and so he kind of broke the sapling tree over. And he said when they did that those little people said, like, "Ah, there is the strongest man in the world. He's the strongest man in the world."
Man.
And so he laid that sapling across this little creek, I guess, or this little stream or whatever. You know, for us, probably like a drainage ditch or something. It wasn't anything major, but he laid that tree down, and the little people crossed it. And when they got across it, they looked back to him and said, "Thank you. You know, like, come, we want to celebrate. We want to tell, you know, we want to thank you for this, what you've done for us. We want to tell everybody what you have done for us." And so they said, you know, "Follow us." And so this medicine maker, you know, went across that sapling with them. He went down to like this little hill part, and there was a hole in the ground. And the little people went into this hole that kind of built on the side of this mound. And they said, "Follow us." And the medicine maker said, "I can't fit in there." And they said, "You have to believe that you can fit in here. You will fit in here. If you believe it, you will fit in here." And so they went inside that hole. It's probably about the size of a rabbit hole or so. And the medicine maker put his hand in there. And sure enough, like, he could reach in there and feel around, just cavernous, like it was a big cavern. And so he stuck his head in there. I kind of picture it kind of like Winnie the Pooh, you know, getting stuck in rabbit's hole. But he fit down inside this cavern. And then they looked back, and when they saw him in this cavern, they said, "Oh, he's here. The strongest man in the world is here." And he said, "Follow us." He said, so the only kind of like, he couldn't stand up all the way. He was kind of hunched over, and they followed him down this little tunnel. And when they came to this other little clearing part, it was going to open up into this larger room. There was a bunch of snakes. And the man said, "I can't go no further. Those snakes are going to get me." And they said the little people laughed at him and said, "You know, we only put those snakes there to scare people away, because we don't want people coming to us. So those snakes are there. They're not going to hurt you." And the medicine maker said, "You know, I see cottonmouths, and I see rattlers, and I see, you know, all these venomous snakes." And then the little people laughed. "Well, I thought you were the strongest man in the world. The strongest man in the world wouldn't be afraid of these snakes." And then they said, "If you believe that they won't hurt you, the snakes won't hurt you." And then they went on, and he left him there. And he said, you know, he had gotten this far on belief, and that he walked through those snakes, and those snakes didn't bother him. They just left him alone. And he ducked down, and he opened up into like this little, like a room. And they looked, the little people saw him, and they said, the strongest man in the world is here. And they said, come sit with us, and then we're going to teach you our songs. And they asked him if he was thirsty, and he said, I am thirsty. And they gave him like a little acorn with medicine in it. They said, drink this. And he drank that, and he said he just felt, alive, like he had never felt before. And then they said, are you hungry? And he said, I am hungry. And they said, well, we'll feed you. Let us feed you. And you're going to stay here with us for 3 days. And the man said, I can't stay. I just got married. And they said, we're going to stay here for 3 days, and we'll teach you our songs, and we'll feed you. And he said that the little people went off, and then they came back with a grasshopper with a little arrow in it. And then they said, here, have this turkey. We killed this turkey for you. And he said, it's not, that's a grasshopper. And they said, again, if you believe that this is a turkey, then it's a turkey. And they pulled off a leg, and he ate the leg, and it said it tasted like the best roasted turkey that he had ever eaten. And they said that, we're going to teach you our songs. And so he decided to stay there. He had gotten that far, and he stayed there for 3 days. And they taught him songs, and they taught him medicines. And when they were done on the 4th day, they said, you can go home now, and you can just go back the way you came in. And he said he went back, he went through the snakes, and he went throughout the hole, and he went back home. And he said when he got back home that his wife was still in bed, and he woke her up and said, I apologize, like I've been gone. And she said, what do you mean? That he had never been gone. He'd only been gone that morning. That when he got back, he was trying to apologize. And she said, what are you talking about? Like,
wow.
You've only been, you haven't been gone 3 days. You've been here. We just got married last night. And he was, oh, okay. So that's a story when you're talking about them saying, they couldn't cross that little stream, and then they celebrated him as being the strongest man in the world, and then made fun of him because he was scared of the snakes. And so that's a good one, and I love that story.
That's a good
That
one.
is a great story.
I want to caution all those Indian men out there. Please don't try to do that to your Indian woman, because you won't have a good outcome. No, I'm just kidding.
The little people took me. You've been gone 3 days.
Dang. Start blaming it on them. No, but that's one thing that you tell that story. And
I've tried it. It don't work.
you try to start blaming.
I said, no, this little people. He wears a Raiders hat. That's the wrong little people.
I'm not gonna lie. When you said when you were describing what they look like, and you said, yeah, even if they're Pawnee, and I looked at, I just imagined, LP dressed in an Unsolved Mystery of the Reservation T-shirt with those sweats,
little
and
top
no
knot.
shoes,
Chilling.
got the talons out.
The headphones on.
Got the ashiest ankles you'll ever see. Oh. Hey, really ragging on him over there.
Oh man,
I'm real happy that you told that story. Those are old traditional Muskogee stories.
Yeah, I haven't told that story in years.
And the beauty about that, is we've got so much more stories like that, but also we have, I don't know what you would say, not so old stories. You'll hear stories, of people interacting with those little people. Like I had told before, there was an individual that, he was a young man, and I think I told that where, he went with them, and when he came back, he wasn't right. All that knowledge that they gave him kind of short-circuited him. But, he could tell the future. He could tell things. He had a lot of power, but he lost things. So they always said, be careful, if you do go with them, because some of the power that they give you is, can short circuit your mind so much, And they said, if you were to seek knowledge like that, there was a way about going about it, fasting and, making yourself right and, making your mind and your body strong. So whatever gift that they give you, you'll be able to handle it, but, again, there's other stories, I know, I've heard this one, about my great-great-grandmother. They moved to this Tulsa area, because my great-grandpa had, got a job. And, he was to work up here in the Tulsa area, but this was way before it was like it is today, And they were living in the house, I guess what you say, west of Tulsa. And, they always said my great-grandma, growing up, she knew things, and she was known to play, with those little people. And, she was starting to get up in age, and, when they moved up here, she was getting kind of sick, and they said she would tell her children that the LPs are visiting her, and they said if she would go with them, that they would heal her. They would do things for her and help her. And she kept telling stories like that, and of course, their kids, kind of thought, well, maybe she's starting to lose it or something, maybe, things aren't, maybe she's getting ready to take that long walk. And anyway, she kept telling them, every night, they're calling, they jump on my window and they're telling me, come with them, and they'll heal you. They'll take care of this sickness, and, you'll be all right, and she considered them friends, because she communicated with them all throughout her walks of life. Anyway, they said one evening her kids wanted to go check on her, to see how she was doing, and they just had this funny feeling to go in there. And they all walked in there and opened up her door, and they saw those little people trying to pull her out that window. And of course, they kind of tried to run them off and stuff, and finally, they were able to break the hold. And of course, they had to call in someone to kind of take care of those things. But that medicine man said, well, they probably really like your grandma, and they're probably really honest on that. They probably could, take care of that sickness, if you guys want that. But, back then, they were kind of scared of those things. So they said, no, we just, rather her, be here with us, not to go with them. So the medicine man did what he was supposed to, and those things quit coming around. But not too long after that, my great-grandmother passed away. So, I always, when I hear that story, I thought, dang, what would have happened if they would have let her, go? But, again, that's us wanting more life, live longer, and sometimes that's not always the best, so that's what I was told. But, you'll hear stories like that around Creek Country to this day.
I've told this story before, but, my kind of experience with them and hearing these stories is, have been kind of mixed. Good, bad, kind of helping out. And the Res Dogs episode, where it was called Mabel, when her grandmother died. I think about that. I thought about that episode, and I was like, man, that reminds me of a story. This is out in Bunch, kind of east of Tahlequah. And it's Cherokee country, and my grandma was growing up out there in this shack basically. It had a kind of an old school Indian blanket over the door and the windows and all that kind of stuff. And she'd always lay in bed. She'd hear something kind of rustling around, and she asked her I guess it's her family member asked her and said, "Hey, why are you leaving that food out? Why are you leaving that that stuff out?" She goes, "We gotta, we have to make sure we feed them and make sure that we respect them. We accidentally built a house on their trail, and this offering is to keep them from, not keep them at bay, but basically, apologize and offer that we apologize. We built our house on this trail, your trail." And so one night she was laying in, it didn't have no beds. It was all one room house. And she's laying, she heard it again. She looked over and it was, one of those, little people that you talk about, with the good dress on, like the old school. And she said she looked at them and they were just sitting there taking the food, back to their people. And, that's one thing I always kind of think about sometimes when I hear that story, and especially when we talk about little people. I always think about, the trails that they have. You always, I was always told if you cross their trail, you'll be able to tell because there's mushrooms in a circle. There's different things that signifies their trail. And I've heard people, stories, that someone, like for instance, there's a story out of Eufaula. Basically, they messed up this trail, and they got real sick, almost died. Medicine man had to come and kind of help them out and say, "Hey, you need to fix that trail. You went through and wrecked their entire trail, so they had to go back and fix it, and give offerings to apologize that we disrespected your lane, your house, basically." And I always think about those stories, because I live in an apartment, and you always hear people having weird stuff going on in their house. Like I had a buddy of mine who had his glasses missing because he was down in Tahlequah, messing around, and he lost his glasses for like a week, and he found them under his doorstep. The doorstep kind of protrudes out a little bit. They were hidden just perfect, where he'd step right over it every day, right in front of him. And so I always wonder about that. If as civilization has expanded, are we protruding on that land? That their land, their sacred land, and their ceremonial grounds. But that's one thing that as like I said, growing up, a story that, and I'll kick it over to one of you guys after this and maybe get your opinion on this, or if you've heard anything like this. But I used to hear a story out of Cherokee country growing up that there was a guy that he had them in jars, and he had them in there. He basically had them as friends, and they'd help him get medicine to help people around in that area. The story that I was told was basically he's now, I think he's gone now, but he was saying that basically he knew this guy was a medicine man. He went to his house, snuck into his house. He said on the wall there was all these little people on the wall in jars, and they were all labeled, different things. Like, oh, this one will help me get, if you got a headache, or, whatever it is, the medicine that you need, or hey, or you got an open wound, this is the one that you take with you. And he said that he came out of that house, and the medicine man was there with one in his pocket. I guess he was curing somebody, helping somebody out, and he had to take that one, the one that he had in his pocket. It was kind of, you can see it kind of moving around. But I was curious, have y'all heard anything kind of similar to that, or anything of that nature?
Well, I've heard a couple of stories. One is like a personal story. I think I told you all. I remember told it off air or whenever. But this happened probably about a month ago. I guess it was maybe about a month ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago. Time's kind of going by quick, but we have a guy down the street from us that kind of dabbles in woodworking in his garage. He, does all these little carvings and, always, tinkering around in his garage or whatever, doing these carvings. And he had a tree in his yard that had got blown over in a storm. And so it was a pretty good sized tree. So the only thing that's left now is, like probably about a 6-foot trunk. I mean, he had cut it all down, but the roots and so deep down, probably underneath his driveway at this point, he can't really do much with it. So it's just like about a 6-foot, I don't want to say stump because it's not really a stump, it's like a tree trunk. Well, long story short, he built or he carved into the side of it a door, and he's painted it all up. And then he also has these little lights that he put out that are like mushrooms, And so my son, he's 3 and he always goes, down there because these guys got stuff put out in his yard and stuff, for Halloween and Christmas and, Thanksgiving he does peanuts, and then Christmas he does Grinch. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Long story short, he saw that door, and I told him, I said, you probably shouldn't go up next to that door, and you shouldn't mess with that door, And he asked me why, and I just told him, I said, we believe that if you build something like that, then things can come and visit that. They could live in trees. So I was trying to explain it to him, and I just called him an LP. I didn't give him this creek name yet because I don't know if he's ready for that. So we just called them LPs. Well, kind of flash. We've been talking about that, and he's like, "Those LPs still live in that house, Dad?" I'm like, "Maybe." I said, you just never know. So every time there's an LP house. So like every time we walk by it now, he knows that's an LP house or an LP door. But he was having bad dreams at night, and he was waking up in the middle of the night, and he has this little sound box on his dresser, and to turn it on, before he goes to bed at night, I flip this little. He calls it his tweets because it makes bird sounds, or it makes water sounds, or it makes soft music. It has like a little night light on it too. So every night I turn his tweets on, but he was having nightmares, and I was having to get up to turn on his music machine back on to get him to go back to sleep. And I'd hold him, like, "You're safe. It's okay. You're just having a bad dream." And anyway, long story short, so we had come home. He and I had gone to this this little native youth program down in Glenpool, and we had stopped to got him Happy Meal. Because it's after school, and we live about 45 minutes from Glenpool. Well, we had come home, and I was getting him out of the car seat that night, and he had some French fries, like in his car seat. And I took those French fries and I just kind of tossed them in the yard. And he goes, "Don't throw my French fries in the street." And I was like, "I didn't throw them in the street. I just threw them out in the yard." I said, "It's kind of good." I said, "Because those little people, they like things like that." I said, "And if you take things and you tell them, like this is for you, to enjoy, and leave us, you do things for us or bless us, or come to it. If you come to them in that good way, they can do good things for you." And I told him that. Well, he went to bed that night, and same routine we always had. Read him a book, told him goodnight, turned his tweets on, went to bed. And during the middle of the night, he had a nightmare again. He had a bad dream. But I thought my wife had gone to get up to turn his music box back on because I heard it click on. And I had woken up that morning, and it's also on a timer. It only does it for like 1 hour, and then it turns itself off. Well, I get up about 5:30, and I got up, and I heard that music box was still on. And I was like, nudged my wife. I was like, "Did you turn his music box on?" And she said, "No." And she goes like, "I thought you did that." And I said, "No, I didn't turn that music box on." So I went in there, and homeboy was sound asleep, but that music box was on, and so let him sleep, got ready for work, and then I went to get him up that next, about an hour or so later. And I go, did you get up out of bed and turn your music box on? He said, no. He goes, no, Dad, I did not get up. And I was like, man, that's weird. So I was like thinking, like, man, after we threw them French fries out in the yard, maybe they came in and turned that music box on, because there's no other explanation for it other than.
Does it help him sleep?
It helps him sleep, because every time he has a bad dream, I got to go in there and hold him, tell him it's okay. And you know what's even crazier about that is he hasn't really had any bad dreams since then. He has not had. I mean, it was frequently like at least one every night.
I need you to ask that neighbor if he knows something. I need you to, because I'm curious about that. Because
he has not had a bad dream since that night. I mean, that I can think of. I mean, he might get up, but he's, he doesn't like. He'll be like, my foot hurts, or something like that. Like he'd take his socks off or whatever it is. But no, when he has a bad dream, he'll say like, I had a bad dream, but he hasn't had a bad dream since that night, and he was having them pretty frequently. And his music box was clicked on. You know what I mean? It's weird.
Maybe they, that's kind of what I think. Maybe they think that they thought he needed that, because it was helping him out. Maybe.
Yeah. But I always kind of thought too, and I mean, I asked you immediately, when I said, like these French fries, you leave them stuff like that, they could come and do. When you come to them in that good way, they can come and do nice things for you too. So
yeah.
Maybe turn his music box
Dang,
on. And they like children, I mean, it's.
Dang, now we know they like McDonald's. Huh?
Like a real Linden.
I would just be cautious, especially, since your son is so young, if they like him, they might try to take off with him, So just be cautious of stuff like that when you do that kind of stuff. I mean, they won't mean to harm him, but, again, they might give him a gift that he might not be able to be ready for. So just be cautious on those kind of things. But, there's a lot of, little things like that when it comes to LPs, that, those old ones used to tell, things to look out for, dealing with those things. Yeah, it's good to feed them. Good to give them offerings, but again, be ready. If you do that, they're going to start coming around, and are you going to be able to handle it? And sometimes, you might be intentions to feed the good ones, but the bad ones might show up too. So, again, that's why I say, just be cautious on those kind of things. Those things come around, and look for those telltale signs. If you start having bad luck, and things start going, south, as they say, you might want to go visit somebody. You know what I mean? So,
Chris, I got a question to ask you. I've heard this. Now, I don't know if you hear things, but I was told that there's certain lands that are designated like it's almost like territories. That like some tribes are located with the tricksters. Some tribes, or their land is on the good ones. Is there any, is that something, that the information that you have on that? Because I just was curious.
Yeah, you're exactly right. There's areas, just like you and I, you live in Broken Arrow. I live in Skytech, Tyler, Glenpool?
No, I live in Broken Arrow too. I live way on the east side.
Okay.
Oh, you're over there by
it was kind of like my story, because like where we were at, that was all. I mean, it's recently been developed. I mean, for years and years and years.
Yeah.
It's just all farmland. In fact, I remember my great grandfather telling me like, in the field that our house is now used to just be a field, and he knew everybody who owned that land. And we could drive through Broken Arrow, and he could tell you like so and so owns that, so and so owns that, and where we were at, which is another reason why I was wondering about that. There used to be this big old ugly burly tree in that field, and my great grandpa always told me, you see that tree right there, that's the oldest tree in Broken Arrow. That's the oldest tree in Broken Arrow, and they've taken that out now, and they built houses over there, shopping centers over there. So like my original point, which I kind of got lost in my story, was you were talking about civilization kind of building on their lands. Where do these things go?
Yeah.
And I've heard stories of those little ones like moving, and people seeing them and saying like, what are you doing? Where are you going? And they're like, well, we're moving because they're building on our land.
Yeah.
And sure enough, 6 months later, a highway goes through or something like that.
Yep.
That's those old ones. And I've said this before, but those old ones would tell you, before you move in, before you build a house, or you do development there, you have to kill the ground, because you don't know what lived there before or what died there. And so when they go in there and what they call kill the ground, that means they take any of those supernatural beings, out of the mix. Then you can go and build your house or your business or whatever. But I think that's that's a very interesting story. And I was trying to sit there and think, I like those Irish people. They always got stories like creeks. But again, we had that relationship with those guys across the waters. And, they have a famous castle over there, and I can't think of the name of it. But, they consider that, they built that castle on those little people's land. And since the day that they built that castle, just bad things have happened. But that castle still stands today. And, they always say, you hear ghosts, you see things, and just off the wall crazy stuff in there. A lot of those ghost shows have gone there to this. I can't think of the name.
I know what castle you're talking about. I just can't think of the name of it.
I can't think of the name of it. So, but anyway, I think of stories like that, and, again, you go into a lot of these Indian communities and you'll hear similar type of stories, about that, so I think that's amazing. But
Chris, you know anything about leprechauns? Because I don't know, my aunt told me the story when I was a kid. I don't know if it was just to scare me or not, but she said, she's passed away and the house is torn down, but I was always afraid to go to that house, and because she was saying that there's she said it was like a little man or something that lived in her house, but she called it a leprechaun. And she said she's seen it once and it had really long hair, and it just looked like a little man, and it would just disappear. But when they were falling asleep, they could hear it in the attic, they could hear it running around and stuff, and then it would come down from the attic into the house, and it would run around, and I don't know if it was getting food or not, but that's what she would tell me. And then I don't know if it was to scare me, but I would never spend the night there. I would.
Dang.
I should tell you that story, and you want to spend the night?
Yeah. And then I remember me and my dad would go over there a lot, and then she would tell us that updates on it and stuff, and it always freaked me out. And then I always remember growing up, I'd look at that house and be like, man, that's where that thing is. I didn't want to say it. I was just like, oh man, and there's a window up in the attic too, and I always would think dang, it might be looking out, and then I was like, but it was freaky. It's hearing that little man thing, and then she would make those noises like that, be up in the attic and stuff, and then just running around when they're trying to sleep. But I guess they're so used to it and everything, and then they tore the house down, so there was nothing that they would find of something like that. So I don't know, but she called it a leprechaun.
Yeah,
and so I don't.
What I was gonna say is, again,
that's interesting.
The thing, with the Muskogee people, we had a connection with those Irish and Scottish people. That's why we got, some creeks have those last names, like McIntyre, McIntosh, and some of those other, real Irish and Scottish names, and we had that relationship because when they came over, they brought a lot of their things. And when they saw Indian folks and they learned about Indian folks, that we had clans, and, of course, they really connected with the Creek people at that time. People don't know that kind of history. And anyway, to make a long story short, they also brought some of their beliefs over, some of their medicine ways at that time. And again, some of those stories, again, creeks, we have a leprechaun thing, entity, as well. But I believe that came from overseas. They brought that over to us. Not only with us, but even the Cherokees had that too. Cherokees also had, a strong relationship with those people as well. And so, to make a long story short, yes, there are stories like that amongst our Indian people. Again, I believe those origins of those type of entities came from across the waters, because they were mischievous too. They could bring you good luck. If you cornered them and you captured them, they believed if you captured them, you have to really know what you're doing, for one. But, if you captured them, again, you could get what you wanted. And they said for ultimate power, though, get this. And it's not like the Leprechaun movie. These guys they would kill it and boil it down to its bones. And they would put his bones in a bag. Now, this came from across the waters, that belief. And again, you'll hear stories amongst the Muskogee, Cherokees, Seminoles, Miccosukes about stories just like that.
Yep. Oh, that castle that you're talking about, it's called Leap Castle.
Exactly.
Yep.
Thank you for that. And that's, like I said, that's awesome. You'll see all those ghost shows going over there, and, they go running out. But, man, I wish I could get a chance to go over there.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah,
Put us out there.
God, I know. Anyone in Ireland? Come on, now.
Bring us over.
Yeah, bring us over.
we don't eat much. No.
Whoa.
Speak for yourself.
No, I'm just kidding.
But that's one thing that you had mentioned something with the old Muskogee story that you told. There's something I haven't ever really talked about. I actually brought it up to my mom this past weekend. Of a time when they first moved over into their house. I had forgot about this. And, with the missing time, but, not really being gone that long type thing. So we moved out to where my parents are now in 2005. And there's a lot of things. I've told stories on Okie Podcast about things that go on out there. The Dogman story, we got, kind of wolf type creatures out there, and, Bigfoot and things like that. But when we first moved out there, literally the first day we were out there, we were like, we got 20 acres. Let's start exploring around, being kids, And another thing that I was always told growing up is the little people like to hang around springs. And they like to, that's kind of like, where sometimes where their home is. Well, on this property where my parents live now, there's a spring on there. And we was down there, and that spring looked immaculate. It looked beautiful. And that's what they say, that's how they're around, is that spring looks, beautiful, clear water. It's perfectly lined out, and that's how it was. And, we were kind of messing around down there, and as you get further and further and further down, you get closer to the river. And we saw all types of different, tracks and prints, and, there's coyotes out there, and there's, we saw cougar tracks. Well, we were thinking it was only hour or so. The sun was still out. It was real bright. But when we got home, it was weird. It was almost like, we were seeing things. We kept following down. And one thing they say that little people do is they shapeshift into things that you're interested in. That get you attracted. Get you kind of going in that motion. We kept going further and further and further and further and down. And I, me being the oldest of all the cousins at the time, I said, "Hey, it's time to go back. I'm getting kind of spidey sense going." And so we start heading back, and I noticed once we got back, as soon as we crossed out the wood lines, it got darker all of a sudden. We've been gone 6, 7, 8 hours, and it was dark. But in the woods, it was sun, beautiful outside. 90 degrees, just out here. When we got back, it was getting dark. You can see the kind of sun going down. And I always think about that. And I mentioned that to my mom. I said, "Remember that we was gone? You said that we was gone 8 hours, and it felt like we was only gone an hour." And she says, "Yeah." They had to, they kind of find out. We find out there's things out there, But I was always told that that spring I haven't been down there. We don't go out there because there's things out there. Like I said, the wood line, we don't go out there. My dad does, but my dad's crazy like that, I guess. But Muskogee Creek, Cherokee, full blood. I guess you'd be like that sometimes. But, but like I said, that spring I always kind of think about sometimes. Like I kind of want to go out there and see if it's still there. That spring is still beautiful. But I remember like it was yesterday. It's beautiful, perfectly, kind of laid out. But I always think about that, when it comes to their homes and things like that.
Losing time.
Yeah. I mean, that's one thing that was so crazy. It's like, I remember I said, man, we felt like we was only out there an hour, maybe 2. But it was like, I remember it was, we come up because it's kind of it goes down and it's real steep coming back up. And you kind of got to weave your way in. And we got out past we stepped past the wood line of the woods. It was almost dark. Mm-hmm. But you look out and it's still light outside. Mm-hmm. You get past it was dark. It was weird. It was kind of crazy.
A lot of tribes, you always hear people talking about those traveling songs, being able to travel. You'll hear somebody talking about, I seen so-and-so. I passed him in my car. He was walking, and we got to Oklahoma City, and he already beat us there. And he knew those Indian ways, and a lot of tribes, they believe they got those traveling songs from those LPs. Mm-hmm. They're able to, they say, some of them say that he's able to fold that ground and he'll just step across and then let it go, and you'll see something whip by you like a breeze, and that's that person using that traveling song. But they also say sometimes he can be in time, to make it where, he can go and do things that he needs to do, in just a matter of seconds. Mm-hmm. And so they say those kind of songs, they all came from those LPs. And every tribe that has or still has that or knows the original way that their people got it, they'll tell you they got it from those LPs. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was a story that I remember being told about during the removal times, about, and they actually had a name, that there was a LP that traveled with them, and they called him Jaka G, and they got stuck on, they were at across this river, but the river was too high because they had kind of misjudged. And
is that the Jackson Lewis story?
I don't remember where the story came from, but I've heard he was on a horse.
Yeah, that's Jackson Lewis.
Okay, I couldn't remember where that story came from.
That's my ancestor.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically, they say that what you said, the water was too high, and they basically, Jackson Lewis was a little boy riding on that horse, and there was a LP sitting on the top of the horse, telling him where we need to go.
Yeah.
Not to interrupt you. Sorry.
No. That was it. Yeah. That was it. So.
There's a lot of stories like that. You'll hear those traveling stories, and not only from creeks, but from a lot of different tribes. They'll tell you, so and so used to have that medicine. I'd see him here, and then he'd beat me to the powwow, or he'd beat me here. And they said he had that old medicine. And I know. For creeks, you heard that story even to this day, so there's people that still have that kind of power, they're not just stories, but you go visit them and they act like they don't understand you, so, to me that's good, because, you're not supposed to be boastful, you're not supposed to abuse it, you're supposed to live right, And so, those kind of stories you'll hear about, pretty frequently, especially here in Creek, Seminole, Cherokee country. So,
yeah, I used to laugh. I used to have family member talk about that too. He's a pastor. He used to do that out in kind of Holbert area. It'd be like, "Hey, you need a ride? Nah, I'm good. I'll see y'all later." That he'd be up there. He'd be already at the church, man. It's funny, man. I'm glad you told that, because I forgot about that. It's just different things like that, but yeah, man, the little people, I just think about I think about them. That's probably one of the most things I think about most. That and snakes, tie snakes and horn snake, things like that, is because it almost kind of affects Indians all the time. You cross their path. Sometimes not saying everybody lives right, but sometimes just you're not right. And you cross them in a bad way, and next thing you know, you're like losing your job. You're just not. You're just not. Things aren't going well. But I think about LP all quite a bit. I know we're always on the podcast. We're always like we don't want to drop nothing yet because this is one of been this episode here is. I think is the cream of the crop of stories and things like that.
Did we get seen that one video? It was from a while ago, but it's this girl. She's running in tall grass, and you could barely see it, but it zooms. There's a video where it zooms in, and there's not too far behind her. There's a little person running with her in old style wear.
Oh yeah,
have you seen that?
I think you sent that to me.
Now send that to me because I haven't seen that one.
I need
TikTok,
to find
Tyler.
it. I need to find it, but I might have sent it to you, or it may be you.
It might have been me. You send me stuff all the time.
But I mean, yeah, that was from 2013 or 14. That was an old video because it was on Facebook, and then I remember seeing it, and then I watched it, and then I did not get it, but that was before somebody slowed it down, and people in the comments are saying, pause here, and zoom in or look close or whatever you got to do. And it's like a blur though, like that little person's like a blur, and you could barely see it, but it's there. It's like this little person running, like I think it's near her or like not too far behind her, and it's just like running in that tall grass, and it's so crazy. I have to find it again, but I have to find the one where it zooms in. But yeah, that was pretty crazy. And then that other one too, is it Saskatchewan, where it's behind a rock?
Oh yeah,
and they're whistling at it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
They're blinking their headlights at it, and it's like I think there's two of them, right?
Yeah, and they were whistling at it too.
Were they?
Yeah, weren't they whistling at it?
Dang, that's crazy.
Turning the headlights off and then whistling, and then
Oh yeah, they were.
and then turning the light on. And
Man.
you like look around that rock. Like, did you get it? Did you get
Yeah.
it? Yeah, I was like, I'm out. Out.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I just wanted to say one last thing about this topic. Again, I can't speak for any other tribe. I'm just gonna, say this much, about the Muskogee people. Again, these are entities that we truly believe in, and even to this day, our medicine people, our real medicine people, the ones that really know things. We heard a story down in Okmulgee about one of these guys. They named him in this story. And, these guys, they knew those things. And for us, it's real. I told you about that story, boiling them down to their bones. That was kind of like one of the criterias of our medicine people to have that is a tool. And this individual that they named, when he passed away, he had that bag, and his family had to take care of those things, and not only him, but there's several other ones that I could name off the top of my head that I knew when they took their last walk, their family had to take care of those bags for them. So again, I know, I don't care what anybody else believes or what they think about these topics. I know for me as a Muskogee Creek, I know these things truly exist, and I'll say that much. Mado.
Me too. I respect them enough. That's why I was like, we need a full episode about it. Everybody can get it out, and a good one. It's a good one. You guys want to plug up everything before we end this one?
Plugging it up. No, I'll go ahead and go first. That's Tyler Randall. I've got Skoden Cinema, which is kind of on a bit of a hiatus right now. I've just got a lot of stuff going on. But I do have a Pump Action podcast. Me and a buddy of mine been recording that one.
It was good.
We've been doing it all summer, and we've had a lot of technical problems with just getting it up. This is my buddy's first podcast, so he's super like quiet. And so, like, we've had to record, but we did all of these over the summer, and they're just now coming out. So we've got 12 right now.
In the tuck.
Yeah. And one in the chamber. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
We got 12 in the clip. No, I'm just kidding. Like real gangsters. No, but Pump Action podcast. So I put it on Skoden right now because I've been talking to the Podfather, and the thought of trying to start completely over with something new is, difficult considering how long it take to build up Skoden. But hang in there. I do have a few episodes coming out. I just don't know when. So I'm not gonna lie to you. But yeah, follow me right now on Pump Action _podcast over on Instagram.
No, I thought your first episodes went real well.
Muddo.
You can find me Yahola Tiger on Facebook, TikTok, One Man Band 918, and I'm joining the podcast ranks with these guys right here. I got a new podcast out. The first episode dropped Sunday, November 13th. It's brand new War Cry podcast. It's on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. The audio for my first episode is kind of dicey. Bear with me. It gets better in the second one. Second episode is going to be dropping, I think, right before this episode drops. First episode is basically about things that aren't as they seem. I tell a story that I was told from a guy who has a YouTube podcast. It's basically about a jinn, basically Middle Eastern trickster shapeshifter. And then the second episode I'll have, and I know we mentioned it before, but basically I know you guys kind of, before I came on here, y'all talked about Bigfoot, but I talk about Bigfoot and medicine and the relationship with that. And I do mention, I do have a clip there from Bigfootville, that documentary back in, I think it's 2004. So that's War Cry Podcast. You can find that, like I said, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and it's also available on YouTube. What-o?
This is Christopher Honka Hill. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok. I got some new ghost adventure videos I went up to San Diego. You'll see where I went and visited. I even went to Yahola's old stomping grounds and checked out everything too. So that's on there too. So again, you want to find something like that, check it out. Muddo.
Yep. Go check out everybody's podcasts, their stories, their visuals, everything they got going on. I guess I'll get my personal Okie podcast at RussellMus49, Russell Sun Eagle on Facebook. Add me, check me out. If you want us to come to your community, let me know. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube for Unsolved Mysteries of the Reservation. Follow us on TikTok at reservation_mysteries. We're on Instagram as well. And also check us out on Spotify. If you love Spotify, our videos are on Spotify as well. So I thought that was a really cool option that they gave this podcast. So if you don't have YouTube for some reason, check us out on Spotify. Our video's on there. If you don't have Spotify, I don't know what to tell you. But and then the shirts. Let me give an update on that. I just got them in, so I'll be printing on them soon. And took a little while for shipping, but everybody's shirts should be on the way very soon. I will contact everybody within a week or two to really clarify the shipping address. So they're on the way. Yeah, so stay spooky.